Do you ever think about what happens when all the gates open at once? There are billions of dollars coming in like a wave. Not slowly, not over weeks, but all at once. Because that's what Stephen McClurk, CEO of Canary Capital, says could happen if spot XRP goods go on sale. He thinks that $3 billion could flow into XRP in the first 24 hours. That's not just a guess. That comes from someone who has put out ETFs before. And the numbers get crazy really quickly when you use Jake Claver's XRP multiplication theory to do the math. This isn't advice about money. Before I explain what these numbers might mean and how they could instantly change the value of XRP, I want you to understand something. This possible setup isn't a chance one. It's about structure. There is math, liquidity, and shortage all at the same time. Markets are where millionaires are made when things like that happen. Also, if you really want to know how to be ready for this moment, read the pinned comment below for the XRP Millionaire Plan. It has the whole text, as well as infographics and video breaks. Everything you need to know to fully understand how this next wave could completely change the game for people who own XRP. After you watch this video, go look at it right away. Oh, okay, let's break this down because this is crazy. ETF manager Stephen McClurk said straight out that he thinks a spot XRP ETF will get $2 to $3 billion in new money on the first day. And he said that was strong. He said it was like when Bitcoin futures first came out and over $1 billion changed hands in the first 24 hours. And the crypto market wasn't nearly as big back then as it is now. That's where things get really interesting if we just use his guess, $3 billion in Jake Claver's multiple math. People make a big mistake when they look at the total amount of XRP, Jake Claver said. Lots of people like to say that there are 100 billion XRP, but the real question is how much can be bought? Because that's important when lots of money comes in. How do you get multipliers? Spend $3 billion on coins that aren't even on the market. Claver thinks that there are currently less than 2 billion XRP on platforms. That's how much liquid you really have. Retail may have more in their own pockets. But the ETF money would first go to XRP, which can be traded and is easy to get. Here's how it makes sense. When $3 billion comes in and there are only 2 billion XRP available, there is a cash crunch that sets off a multiplier. Every dollar that is spent on those coins makes the price go up by a huge amount. Claver's math shows that that's about a 50x increase at that point. That number is not a fluke. If there isn't much cash on hand, this is how supply and demand shock events work. Now, though, this is where things get interesting. If the $3 billion starts buying XRP and half of the exchange stock is gone in a day, you're no longer left with 2 billion XRP to choose from. This place gets you closer to 1 billion. That makes the increase twice as big. So that's how you could really get a 100x increase in value from that one-day cash event. So let's picture this. $3 billion times 100 times $300 billion in market value growth. If you divide that number by the total number of XRP that are in circulation, you get about $150 per XRP. Yes, 150. To do that, experts use the same model they used when their Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs went live. Before you say that can't happen, think about what we already know. Analysts thought there would be a huge supply shock when Bitcoin spot ETFs came out in early 2024. Bitcoin's multiplier ended up being closer to 4x than 50x because huge institutional buyers stepped in to balance demand. That's the reason Bitcoin didn't 100x quickly. But here's the thing, XRP is not like other coins. Bitcoin is very liquid with huge exchange amounts and big players who were ready to sell. XRP doesn't have that. The amount of XRP that can be traded is very small compared to its total supply. A lot of it is locked up in escrow or owned by long-term believers who aren't touching their bags. That's what makes this setting uneven. Picture a seesaw. Bitcoin is on the heavy side. A lot of stock, lots of buyers, and a lot of trade. On XRP's side, there isn't much liquidity. Users are very sure of their positions. And there isn't yet an ETF that can drain it. When that institutional money comes in, it could put a lot of pressure on the price of XRP. This can change lives, even if we don't reach $150. For now, let's stick with the safe 50x multiplier situation. $3 billion times 50. $150 billion in market value. That's about $75 in XRP. And that number could grow even faster if $5 billion flows in the first month, which McClurk thinks is very likely. Don't forget that this isn't just talk. This is about math and lack of resources coming together. It makes sense that Jake Claver, Zach Rector, and McClurk all come to the same conclusion when they look at the same facts. A lot of XRP is being used up quickly. Now think about this. Already, CME XRP futures had more trades than any other product that were worth more than $1 billion. That shows a real hunger among institutions. The people who are making these goods are not regular traders. There are family offices, companies, private wealth groups, and banks that want to get their names out there before everyone else. That means that when the spot ETF door opens, the money that has been waiting for regulatory guidance can finally move. It won't drip when it moves either. The market will be hit hard. Imagine that this is all going on at the same time that Flare Network opens up yield chances on XRP. At the same time that ETFs are coming in, people are lending, borrowing, staking, and making XRP into fake safe assets. It's not just pressure to buy. It's called energy pressure. That's creating wealth and locking it at the same time. This is what makes XRP different if you're new to it. Not like meme coins or risky layer ones that depend on hype. XRP is made to be settled. It was made to be useful for banks and the real market, not just DeFi. It's not often that energy demand and institutional inflows come together in a way that makes sense. This is why many wealthy people and private companies are quietly building up right now. They know the liquidity event is on the way. When it does, you won't be able to get in for less money again. The schedule isn't set in stone, but the progress can be seen. Everything points to the same result, from filings for CME futures and ETFs to the formation of custody partnerships that are happening behind the scenes. XRP is about to have its Bitcoin ETF moment, but maybe with more power. Plus, this is even more interesting because of this. Ripple's system is set up so that institutions can easily use it, but they already have banking partners, ODL corridors going around the world, and payment rails that can handle a flood of cash in real time. The ETF for Bitcoin did not have that when it first came out. XRP does. Think about what will happen when the US thinks it needs a digital dollar infrastructure, but the Federal Reserve doesn't allow a CBDC to be used. What are they going to do? They will need a private partner that people around the world can trust. In fact, Ripple already fits that description very well. Brad Garlinghouse has said more than once that Ripple is not just a payments company, but also a blockchain infrastructure company. In other words, making payments across borders was just their first line. They are getting ready for more than one area. And if a Fed coin or other safe asset backed by the USD ever rides on Ripple, XRP will connect it to the rest of the world. That idea is not a moonshot. That makes sense as a development, because Amazon Books was the first thing they sold, and it was only one column. After that, it grew into everything. RIF is the same. The same backbone ledger will be used for payments first, then maybe central bank lines, tokenized assets, and digital identity systems. Also, add ETFs to the mix for some flair and a smaller market supply. You begin to see the whole picture. The price of XRP isn't just going up, it is getting a whole new set of business tools. How about the craziest part? A lot of people in business still don't know about this setup. The people in charge are asleep at the wheel, but engineers, fund managers, and infrastructure builders are busy installing the pipes. It will be too late when a store opens again. It will be too late to get the price. It's more important than ever to understand this stuff before it happens, because there won't be enough money in the market by the time CNBC reports that the spot XRP ETF has been approved. The cash will start to come right away. If that $3 billion comes in on day one, as McClurk says it will, with only about 2 billion XRP in circulation, that's when the multiple goes off the charts. That's where the math changes from being abstract to being real. People will wonder how this happens so quickly when they see that increase in real time, because it always goes like that. The crowd can't see how it's set up. They only look at how people respond. The clues have been there the whole time if you've been paying attention and watching how the liquidity grows. This is a time when macro, regulation, and usefulness all work together perfectly. Not often, it's strong. The good times end soon. When Bitcoin's ETF first came out, everyone thought it would have a 50x multiplier because there wasn't meant to be much liquid supply. The truth is that this is what happened. Institutions knew there would be demand, so they put their stock out there first. They put Bitcoin into holding accounts, ETF providers got it early, and market makers made sure the flow was even. The price didn't go through the roof all at once. It kept going up. But that's not the case with XRP. It's not like there are huge amounts of XRP just sitting there ready to be sold. The exchange on Ripple doesn't work that way. 1 billion of these pieces are released every month at the same time. Even then, Ripple often locks apart again. The flow of cash is slowed down. You can add to that the fact that platforms have historically low amounts of XRP on hand. This is not a view. This info is on the chain. From months on end, supply has been leaving organized platforms. That is, if $3 or $5 billion fly into XRP ETFs, you're not just buying XRP. You're buying the idea that there won't be enough of it. Let's say that the ETFs start to use big custodians to get cash. Maybe Coinbase, maybe Fidelity, or maybe a Ripple-related company once they have all of their licenses. As soon as that money comes in, it starts to take everything that is available. When arbitrage bots go crazy, spreads get wider, and all of a sudden, regular traders start buying whatever's left in a hurry. In this way, feedback loops are made. Large institutions are waiting in line for structured ETF products, while high net worth clients are trying to get in ahead of them. Regular people are also trying to get in before the next wave. It's not just a gathering, it's a vortex of money. Also, keep in mind that this isn't some hype coin based on guesswork. You can already use XRP in real life. Banks, payment corridors, and other groups are already using it to send money across borders. To keep the network's main purpose strong, every new piece of cash added to the system makes it stronger, not weaker. When the price of XRP goes up, it actually helps bridge gaps in liquidity because a token with more value can move more money with fewer units. This is the exact opposite of tokens that lose value when demand goes up. The way XRP is built was made for this to happen. Now think about what will happen if money keeps coming into the ETFs after the first day. McClurk said it could be as much as $5 billion in the first month. That could lead to a situation where all of XRP's available float turns into a liquid. People who own it won't want to sell. Market makers are going to get stricter, and ETF providers will have to keep paying more and more to get XRP. That's how a slow rise starts. The price went up even more than a pump. It wasn't just about price when Bitcoin ETFs first came out. It had to do with authority. Institutions finally had a doorway that was legal and followed the rules. That could be even more important in the form of XRP. Not only is it about gambling, but it's also about combining payments and money. Now comes the interesting part. Coin ETFs made around 15 billion in their first few months. Because Ethereum ETFs are mostly used by developers, they are likely to bring in less money. But XRP's ETF might be different. It's both a guess and a useful thing. It's an institutional tool and a bridge asset at the same time. And this is the reason why some, like McClurk, think it could do better than Bitcoin's start numbers. That means the following. It's not just $150 XRP if 3.5 billion comes in, and even a 50x increase stays in place for a short time. That's a short-term lack of cash that could cause prices to spike to triple digits and stay there until supply is restored. And even if it doesn't get that high, think about what will happen anyway. The value of Ripple's ecosystem goes through the roof as liquidity rises in ODL corridors and on-chain traffic soars. Just the way the prices moved would make news around the world. It would quickly change XRP's story from the coin that was sued to the asset that was controlled by institutions. The change in public opinion alone could keep the next multi-year bull phase going. Now take a step back. Take a look at the big picture. It's against policy for the Federal Reserve to do what you want. As things stand, they can't properly start a CBDC without Congress. Global settlement methods are trying to become more up-to-date. You have the BRICS countries putting in place their own digital train plans. There is also Ripple in the middle of all of that. It has enterprise-grade software, real bank relationships, and a token that is meant to make liquidity easier. There is no better time than now, because the infrastructure is being made in the background while everyone talks about the Fed coin or a digital dollar. It also doesn't need a straight launch of CBDC. It only needs a private network that banks and states can trust to connect to. That's Ripple's whole goal. It was even Brad Garlinghouse who said it. Cross-border payments were the first thing that Ripple did because they were the biggest problem to solve. As soon as they fixed that, they could move into new categories. Bitcoin, digital identities, carbon credits, and the ability for CBDCs to work with each other. And each of those categories increases demand for XRP, which is the native asset of the XRP ledger. After all, this talk about ETFs is only a small part of a bigger picture. Everything else that Ripple has been putting up for years could go off with this. Also, think about what the market will feel when XRP's price finally breaks out of its previous range. People have joked for years that XRP will never move. But when it does, when it starts making candles that cost many dollars in days, that joke turns into fear of missing out. Traders who haven't looked at XRP in years will now start to chase it. The news will change. The stories will turn around. That's how new market cycles start. Remember that XRP's on-chain efficiency is better than those of Bitcoin or Ethereum because it allows for real economic flow without high gas costs or slow finality. That means it can be used by banks, fintechs, and even the government, not just guess about it. In this case, the price action isn't separate from the facts, it's because of them. The money coming in through ETFs only speeds up what Ripple's business adoption started. Add what's going on with Flare now. A few days ago, Hugo Fillion, CEO of Flare Networks, said that people who own XRP will soon be able to use FXRP, a wrapped version of XRP, on DeFi platforms to make yield, borrow against it, and even mint stablecoins. That's a full utility loop. Institutional buyers don't just have exposure to XRP once it starts to earn money. They have cash that can be used to make things. That's what makes a real financial object different from a token used for speculation. And once ETF providers learn that they can make yield on XRP held by customers through regulated DeFi protocols, demand will grow in a new way. It's no longer just about price growth, it's also about return and capital efficiency. That's what institutions love. And if even a small part of that happens, it will change more than just XRP's market value. It will also change its role in global banking. It's possible for XRP to go from being seen as the case coin to being the backbone of the next generation of financial internet, and everything changes as soon as the market gets clear, as soon as the all clear is given and the ETFs go live. Because big investors don't change their minds like small investors do. They don't wait. They don't think twice. They don't look at charts on their phones and say, maybe next week. In one afternoon, they give out billions. And when that happens in a market with little trading volume like XRP, where real available liquidity is a small part of total supply, prices don't move by much. It jumps around a lot. Uncertainty about regulations has kept XRP from growing for years. That energy can't get through because the wall isn't made of steel. It's made of paper. As soon as the paper tears, money comes in from all sides. Remember what took place when Ethereum ETFs were approved? Billions came in right away. This had a bigger effect on how people saw it, on its authority. The way businesses talked about Ethereum overnight changed after that one move. XRP is the next thing that will get that attention. But the way XRP's environment is structured is what sets it apart from all the other assets that came before it and could make the multiplier effect even stronger. XRP was made for speed and scale. But what it was really made for was worldwide use. The community won't be able to use this joke coin to make money. This is the framework for moving money between countries. The speed at which value moves through the system goes up with each route, bridge, and ODL partner. When velocity goes up and supply held off of trade goes up, the effect of new money coming in on prices goes through the roof. That's why the idea of market cap multipliers is important. Not only is it a model, but it also shows how thin the real float is. Now think about this. Let's say that the average institution chooses to put only 0.1% of their managed assets into spot XRP products. That's right, not 1%. Not even 0.51%. For big companies, that could mean tens of billions of dollars in new demand for an asset that has a much smaller moving float than most people think. This isn't power for speculation either. This is capital from pension funds, hedge funds, private wealth desks, and other controlled, insured, and audited sources that can't buy from Binance or hold on to Ledger. They need to work with ETFs. There needs to be guards. Once those bars are there, they don't just dip their toes, they get bigger. You can already feel the pressure rising thanks to Ripple's legal wins, the integration of global banks, and the alignment of ISO 2022. Everything has been building up to this point. And if Stephen McClurk's prediction of $3 billion in inflows on day one is even half right, the market could see a shockwave that changes what people think is possible for XRP's price movement. Because adding $1 to XRP doesn't just add $1 to the market cap, if the multiplier stays the same as it has been in previous ETF starts. You're adding a lot. During the time when Bitcoin became an ETF, its multiplying effect was about 20x on average. Ethereum has been around 25x on average. But XRP's tight liquidity pools and structure of flowing supply could make that even stronger. People will not see it coming. They'll wonder how XRP went up 5 times in 1 week, without understanding that institutional volume is hitting behind the scenes through over-the-counter, OTC desks and ETF allocations that are being watched. People who buy in bulk will see the candles, but organizations will see the story. That's the important thing, because the way the market thinks changes when the story goes from lawsuit risk to controlled institutional gateway. Suddenly the news starts to be more positive. Instead of guessing, analysts start to figure out fair value based on usefulness and volume. That's when the second wave of money comes in, the continuation that keeps prices at new levels instead of going back down. The irony now comes in. Retail had years to quietly build up their holdings, while XRP was held back by the law. People were scared away by the same news that made the chance possible in the first place. The case stopped time in its tracks. After it has fully thawed, the gathering phase ends right away. This happens when the SEC case is over and institutional doors open. When regular investors find out that XRP can be used in all global settlement systems, the price structure will already have changed to represent this. For 5 years, it seemed like the window would never end. In 5 days, it will. The way uneven events work is like this. After a long time of nothing happening, everything does happen at once. This is why focus is important. When instability comes back, it will test your faith. A lot of people want to be early, but not many can handle all the noise that comes with it. Ripple has agreements with central banks, global remittance networks, and ODL corridors. If you know what they mean, you can use them. You know that this isn't a meme loop. This is the usage of infrastructure. When acceptance and access to liquidity work together, the XRP market gets something that hasn't been there before. Scale approval for institutions. RippleNet has already been used by banks to settle cross-border transfers and pilot projects. Through XRPL sidechains, we've seen central banks try out CBDC connectivity. That hasn't been priced in at all. Until the liquidity switch changes, it's just background noise. After that, everyone acts like it was clear. Every time it's the same story. When Bitcoin was $500, people laughed at it. For Ethereum under $10, they didn't care. At $1, they didn't trust Solana. But when the big story changed and access was opened up, the shock turned into fear of missing out, FOMO, and fear of missing out turned into mania. For years, XRP has been in that disbelief zone. This means it's time for the image to be changed. Picture this timeline now. XRP ETFs are now available. Huge amounts of institutional output. When prices rise into the double digits, they become a hot topic. News sites are scrambling to explain the rally by saying that financial institutions have asked for it in ways they didn't expect. Retailers come back in droves to try to catch up. Meanwhile, the people who knew about this setup months ago are already in place. That's why XRP's story doesn't end with clarity. It's the starter. For those who are paying attention, this point of no return could be the biggest shift of wealth in the history of digital assets since Bitcoin was accepted by banks. There's more to it than just talk now. It has to do with the world's infrastructure coming up to the thing that it was made for. The question won't be how high can XRP go when the dust passes and new charts are made with a price that seemed impossible before. It will be, why did I miss it before? The XRP Millionaire Blueprint has all of this information and more if you want a more in-depth look. It has the data, the ETF math, the timeline, and the full utility map that ties everything together. The paper, visual breakdowns, and plan for what comes next make up the whole guide. The link is in the comment that was saved